You know that feeling when life finally gives you the thing you've been dreaming about for years, when you pause and think, wait, did I actually do it? That's where I was, boarding my flight to Europe with my passport in one hand and a playlist of romance audios in the other. I was 23, a junior lawyer in New York, and for the first time since graduation, I was free. Camila Ortega didn't have it all, but she had enough to smile walking through JFK's Terminal 4 with sneakers on her feet and butterflies in her chest. Her phone was loaded with romantic fanfic she'd downloaded on YouTube Premium, stories that had kept her sane on long subway rides and sleepless nights. Now she was living one of her own, or at least she hoped. Her itinerary was ambitious: Spain, Italy, France, and a sprinkle of coastal Greece, all in 12 days. It was the kind of trip she planned during 2 a.m. breaks at the office, dreaming between contracts and espresso shots. This was supposed to be a break from logic, a break from control, a break from being who she had to be. Just Camila and her backpack, chasing sunsets and cappuccinos. She found her seat by the window, row 22. Her heart thudded with that giddy mix of anxiety and possibility. Then she noticed someone already in the aisle seat, hood pulled up, face shadowed, earbuds in, and a black duffel bag tucked between his legs. He didn't look up when she said, "Hi," just nodded slightly and turned back toward the window. Whatever, she thought, settling in. She had her earbuds too. She opened her iPad and clicked play. A soft voice filled her ears. The familiar comfort of another fanfiction story, about strangers falling in love on a train in Prague. Outside the cabin windows, the city lights started to blur as the plane rolled toward takeoff. Camila took a deep breath. It was all finally happening. An hour into the flight, the crew dimmed the lights and rolled out the snack carts. Camila pulled out her earbuds, blinking back into reality. Next to her, the mystery man stretched, slowly rising to his feet in the narrow aisle. As he reached up and pulled his hoodie off, Camila's heart nearly stopped. He was stunning. Not cute guy from accounting stunning, more like runway model with a dangerous past stunning. Tall, slightly tanned, soft jawline, tousled hair, and eyes like they belonged in a fragrance ad. She turned her head quickly, trying not to stare, but her brain was screaming, "What kind of fanfic timing is this?" He sat back down, ran a hand through his hair, and turned to her with a lazy grin. "Ever had these airline sandwiches before?" he asked, nodding toward the snack cart. "Kind of feel like eating regret wrapped in plastic." His voice was deeper than she expected, warm, smooth, a little sleepy, like the kind you never forget. She blinked, trying to catch up. "Sorry, what?" she said, pulling one earbud the rest of the way out. "I was thinking about something else." He chuckled, and her stomach did that traitorous little flip. Why was his laugh attractive? "That shouldn't be legal," I said, he repeated, still smiling. "These sandwiches look lethal." "Should I be worried?" She shrugged. "If you survive the turkey one, you've basically beaten death." He let out a soft laugh. "Good to know. You've clearly flown more than I have." She smirked. "Occupational hazard. I work in law. Suffering's part of the contract." "No way," he said. "Law? You don't look like someone who argues for a living." She tilted her head. "And what does that look like?" He raised his hands. Okay, not judging. Just, you look like you could destroy someone in court and still get invited to brunch." That made her laugh. For the first time in weeks, she relaxed her shoulders and leaned back. "I like brunch," she said. "And winning." He nodded, impressed. "I like honesty." They fell into a rhythm, trading stories about airports, late nights, and Netflix betrayals. She asked if he was traveling for work. He hesitated, then said, "Not really. I'm kind of escaping." She raised an eyebrow. "Escaping what?" He gave her a half grin. "Everything, expectations, my father, my timeline." Camila sipped her ginger ale slowly. "That sounds dramatic." "It is," he agreed. "But it's also true. My life's been on rails since I was born. What to study, who to date, what age to marry. I got tired of checking boxes." She blinked. "So you just ran?" He nodded. "One bag, one ticket, and no itinerary. I just needed to breathe." For a moment, Camila didn't know what to say. Then she smiled. "That's either very brave or very stupid." He laughed. "I've been told both." She leaned in, a little curiosity sparking. "So what's your name, rebel without a checklist?" He hesitated, then said, "Noah." "Noah," she repeated, testing the name. Nice to meet you, Noah. I'm Camila, and for the record, I also approve of ditching prearranged marriages. He gave a sheepish smile. I guess it is kind of that. I'm supposed to settle down by 21, marry a girl I don't love, and run part of the company. I'm 19. I panicked. 19? She blurted. I'm 4 years older than you? He smirked. And yet you still talk to me. You must really like airline snacks. She narrowed her eyes. Don't push your luck. But she was smiling, and somewhere deep down she kind of didn't mind. He stood to use the bathroom. While he was gone, a flight attendant walked by and asked, "Is Mr. Bennett seated here?" Camila looked up, confused. "Yes," the attendant smiled. "First class has an open suite. He's been invited to transfer." Camila's mouth opened, but no words came out. When Noah returned, the attendant asked again, "Mr. Bennett, your seat's ready." Noah sighed, gave Camila a glance and said, "Thanks, but I'm good here." The attendant blinked. "Are you sure?" "Yeah," he said. "It's comfortable." Camila stared at him like he'd grown a second head. "You're Mr. Bennett?" she asked. He shrugged. "Guilty. My dad probably flagged the flight. Wouldn't surprise me if one of those attendants is actually private security." Camila leaned back. Okay, she thought. This is either the start of a Netflix movie or the weirdest night of my life. For the rest of the flight, Camila and Noah talked about everything from favorite books to childhood injuries. He told her about switching majors twice, how business school felt like a golden cage, and how he used late-night YouTube rabbit holes to escape. Camila, surprisingly, didn't mind opening up about her own burnout. She realized she hadn't laughed this freely in months. He asked smart questions about her work in law, the kind most people faked interest in. She told him how she wanted to fight for women's rights in the corporate world, but got buried in paperwork. "You don't seem like the type to disappear behind a desk," he said. She smiled. "Yeah, well, student loans disagree." By the time the captain announced the final descent, Camila had almost forgotten where she was going. Her cheeks hurt from smiling. Her heart felt strangely light, and when the plane wheels touched the runway, it was like waking up from a really good dream. They walked off together. His hoodie now tied around his waist, backpack slung casually over one shoulder. He didn't have to go through customs. No checked baggage, no extra anything. "Guess this is where we part ways," he said with a soft grin. "Enjoy Italy, Camila." She nodded, adjusting her crossbody bag. "And you, enjoy whatever you're running from." He chuckled. Fair. They held each other's eyes for one moment too long, just enough for it to sting when she turned away. And then he was gone, swallowed by the crowd. Camila found her luggage, passed through customs, and pulled her phone to call an Uber. Her chest felt unusually tight. "Why does it feel like I'm missing something I never even had?" she thought. She shook her head. "It's just airport emotions and a handsome stranger, that's all." The airport exit buzzed with noise, suitcases rolling, families shouting, drivers holding signs. As she stepped toward her Uber, someone tapped her arm. She turned, startled. Noah stood there, hoodie switched for a beige pullover, a different bag on his back. "Hey," he said, almost out of breath. "Need a co-pilot?" She blinked. "Noah?" He grinned. "Yeah, so, turns out I'm being followed." Camila looked around, half expecting men in black suits to leap out. "Followed?" He nodded. "Security. My dad's probably tracking my phone. I needed to switch outfits and blend out. You looked safe." Without waiting, he slid into the car after her. "Excuse me?" she said, eyes wide. "Are you serious? I'm in a foreign country." He raised a hand. I know, totally creepy. But I'll pay double, and I'll prove I'm not a psycho. Just don't make the Uber cancel." "Okay, stalker vibes aside," she said, still stunned. "You better start proving real fast." Noah pulled out his phone and opened Instagram. "Here, me, that's my dad. That's the board of directors. My mom does wellness retreats. That's my sister. She's annoying. Swipe if you need more family tree." Camila stared at the screen. His feed was filled with photos from press events, charity galas, and the occasional blurry selfie. "You have 3.4 million followers," she whispered. "Yep, mostly people waiting to see me crash and burn." He smirked. "Please don't be one of them." Her thumb hovered over his profile picture. And you don't just say you're this guy, because. He handed her his passport. Camila, I'm impulsive, not stupid. She looked at the name, Noah Alistair Bennett, the same surname as one of the biggest tech conglomerates in the country. She exhaled. You've got to be kidding me. He leaned back, looking out the window. Trust me, I wish I was. But you get it, right? The escaping part, even if it's a little crazy? She hesitated but nodded. Yeah, I think I do. For the first time in hours, she didn't feel like the adult in the room. Just another soul trying to breathe. The Uber twisted through cobbled streets, away from the typical tourist path. Noah paid the driver in advance, plus tip. Where are we going? She asked. He shrugged. I figured you'd pick. You're the one with an itinerary. I'm just the fugitive, Camila sighed, glancing out the window. Her fingers still clutched his phone, screen dimmed. You're lucky I don't sue you for emotional manipulation. Is that a lawyer flirting? He asked. She groaned. You're infuriating. And charming, he added. Don't forget charming. Despite herself, she laughed. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. She had planned every step of this trip. Hotels, trains, walking tours, color-coded spreadsheets. And here, she was in a foreign country, in an Uber with a runaway billionaire she met 7 hours ago. Noah peeked at her. So, is this the part where you drop me at the police station? Camila shook her head. Not yet. I want to see where this disaster goes. He smiled. That's the spirit. She sighed again, half exasperated, half amused. You better not ruin my vacation. I won't, he said quietly. If anything, I might make it unforgettable. The Uber dropped them off in a narrow street flanked by old buildings and soft orange lamps flickering under late afternoon skies. Noah stretched like he had just landed on a new planet. First stop, phone store. If I disappear now, it'll look like an alien abduction. Camila rolled her eyes. That's reassuring. Inside a tiny electronics shop, Noah picked up the cheapest unlocked phone. No GPS, no data sync, just texts and bad selfies. Camila watched him remove his SIM card with surprising precision. You've done this before, she teased. Once or twice, he said with a smirk. Mostly after family dinners. He pulled out his wallet and handed over his credit card. This is how my dad will know I'm alive, one swipe at a time. Camila arched a brow. And what if he freezes the card thinking you got mugged? Noah leaned in, whispering, dramatically, then I guess I'll need to mug someone. You know any distracted American tourists? She nudged him with her elbow. I know one who'd sue you into oblivion. He clutched his heart. Ouch. Legal and lethal. She laughed, shaking her head. You're impossible. And yet, he said, sliding his receipt into his hoodie pocket, you still haven't ditched me. With the sun softening into a golden glow, they walked with no destination in mind. Tourists buzzed by with maps and gelato, but Camila and Noah moved at their own pace. He talked about the view like he was reading a poem off the buildings. She started seeing the city differently. Noah pointed out a local art piece painted across a brick wall. See that? Looks like chaos, but it's actually a map of the city if you tilt your head. Camila tilted. I think you're full of... Maybe, he said. But wasn't it worth the head tilt? They found a small trattoria tucked in an alley that smelled like garlic and melted cheese. Noah opened the door for her, bowing slightly. After you, my legal queen. Camila paused. That was weirdly formal. Sorry, I'm trying out new identities. Today I'm Italian nobility. They ordered pasta and local lemonade. Camila took her first bite and sighed. Okay, this might be better than New York pizza. Noah gasped. You take that back. She smiled, lips stained with tomato. I said might. He shook his head. I need to report you to the NY Food Police. Between mouthfuls, they joked about which European city matched their personalities. You're Paris, he said. Complicated, elegant, occasionally rude. Camila laughed. Then you're Barcelona. All charm and weird architecture. I'll take that, he said. Weird is underrated. After lunch, they walked through a street fair where performers juggled flaming pins and kids danced to accordion music. Noah tried to mimic one of the dancers and tripped on the cobblestone. You okay? She asked through laughter. Totally, just bruised. Emotionally. They sat on a bench by a fountain, the noise of the city fading under the breeze. Noah leaned back, eyes half closed. This is what I imagined life could be like, not spreadsheets, just this. Camila stared at the water. You don't even like wine and stress? He turned his head to look at her. You make stress look good. She snorted. Don't flirt like a 19-year-old. He raised an eyebrow. I am 19. And there it was, the thing she'd been avoiding. Her smile faltered slightly. He caught it immediately. Still weird for you? He asked, voice gentler now. She nodded, honest. Yeah, kinda. He shrugged, still calm. I get it. You've probably dated guys who own, like, espresso machines and real furniture. And who aren't still on their parents' Netflix plan, she added. He didn't flinch. I'm not trying to win you over with fake maturity. I like that you're more experienced. You ask questions like they matter. Camila looked at him carefully. You're not like most 19-year-olds. I'll take that as a win, he said, not breaking eye contact. She stood up, brushing crumbs from her lap. Still, it's complicated. So is life, he said, following her. But look where complicated just led you. Best lasagna of your life. I won't argue with that, she said, her tone softer now. Good, he said. Then let's keep walking. They passed a busker playing violin. Noah dropped coin into the case and the man smiled mid-note. You're a softie, she said. Exposed, he replied. Don't tell anyone, it'll ruin my reputation. Camila tucked her hands into her coat pockets. She was still unsure, but less than before. He talked about his favorite books. She told him about her childhood dog. They stopped for gelato even though they were full. It was messy and silly and tasted like lemon and laughter. And for a moment, Camila forgot to worry about logic or age or what came next. As they turned the corner toward her hotel, Noah paused. I know this isn't normal, but I'm really glad you didn't get into different Uber. She met his eyes. Me too. The words came before she could stop them, and they hung there, fragile and true. They arrived at the hostel just as the sun dipped behind a row of tiled roofs, painting the sky in deep oranges. Camila approached the desk first, confident. Reservation for Ortega. The receptionist squinted at the screen. Looks like there was a glitch. We're overbooked. Camila blinked. But I prepaid. I know, I'm really sorry, he said. We can refund you, but we just don't have space. She turned to Noah, trying to play it cool. He stepped up, pulling out his wallet. Okay, how about this? What's the most expensive room you have? The manager raised a brow. The private suite upstairs? Great, Noah said. I'll take it if you give her a decent room, not the broom closet. The man hesitated. If you're sure. Positive, Noah said, handing over his card like a black Amex was nothing. Camila gave him a suspicious look. You really don't have to. Too late, he said, handing her a key card. Royal decree, she smirked. You're impossible. Yeah, he said, lifting his backpack, but generous. They parted ways with matching smiles and tired eyes. In her small but cozy room, Camila kicked off her shoes and flopped onto the bed, exhausted. The ceiling fan spun slowly, lulling her into comfort, but instead of sleeping, she opened Instagram and typed in his name. His profile was public, bold move for someone on the run. Photos of Noah at events, yacht, parties and luxury resorts filled the screen. One of him with a Great Dane had over 40,000 likes. Just as she tapped on a video, a notification popped up. New message from Noah. Hope you're not stalking me, Miss Lawyer. She nearly jumped. Glancing around, she closed the curtains and laughed to herself. I was studying the daily habits of European royalty, actually. His reply came fast. Speaking of the common folk, the bartender downstairs totally flirted with me and invited us to a party. She blinked. Us? Yes, you. Get dressed. Something light. The night's too hot for seriousness. Camila stared at her screen. For a second, debating. Then she rolled off the bed. What the hell, she whispered. Let's see what the prince thinks a party looks like. She changed into a breezy dress, something easy to dance in, and ran a quick brush through her curls. Her lipstick was minimal, just a hint of boldness. When she stepped into the lobby, Noah was already waiting, leaning against a column, sipping something neon. He raised his brows. Wow. You clean up fast. And you look like someone who just came from an EDM video shoot. He glanced at his shirt. It's European vintage. It's neon chaos, she replied, grinning. He offered his arm. Shall we blend in like locals or stand out like legends? They followed the sound of laughter and drums to a square glowing with lanterns and people. A DJ played under string lights. Couples danced in sandals and linen. Camilla's eyes widened. This is perfect. Noah smiled. Told you. Local. Chick. They bought drinks from a small stand run by a woman in floral pants and bare feet. Try this, she said, handing them something pink and mysterious. Camila took a cautious sip, then coughed. That's alive. That's probably illegal, Noah said, taking another gulp. Someone handed them sparklers, and soon they were dancing between strangers under the night sky. Camila wasn't much of a dancer, but Noah didn't care. He moved with joyful absurdity, dragging her into spins, lifting her hand like she was royalty again. I thought you hated being watched, she shouted over the music. I do, he said, but tonight I'm just a guy in a hoodie who finally escaped the castle. She paused. You know you're totally living a rom-com now, right? He leaned in. Only if the female lead agrees. The music slowed. People swayed closer. Camila hesitated. His hand found hers gently. No pressure, just presence. You're doing that thing again, she whispered. What thing? Looking. Me like I'm not a lawyer with a flight in 3 days. He leaned closer. You are a lawyer with a flight. But right now, you're the reason this night feels like it matters. Camila laughed softly, stepping back. God, you're good. Practice, he said, or natural talent. Or just 19, she countered, raising an eyebrow. He grinned. Still stuck on that, huh? It's a lot, she said, but less than it was this morning. Progress, he replied. I'll take it. She stared at the lanterns. Above. You ever get the feeling you're gonna remember something forever, even if it ends tomorrow? All the time, he said. Usually when I meet lawyers on planes. She bumped him with her hip. You're impossible. You said that already. Still true. Still here. His smile was sincere. Her walls softened. They danced until the crowd thinned and the sky turned dark blue with hints of dawn. They walked back barefoot, heels in hand, silent under the sleepy hush of empty streets. At the door of her room, she turned to him. "Thanks for the chaos." "Any time," he said. The sunlight sliced through the slits in the curtains, warming Camilla's face before her eyes even opened. She sat up with a gasp, grabbing her phone. 9:52 a.m. "No, no, no, no," she muttered, throwing the blanket aside. She had a packed itinerary. This trip was planned down to the minute. Still in pajamas, she slipped on her sneakers and darted into the hallway. A few knocks on Noah's door got no answer. She exhaled sharply and ran down to the hostel cafe. "Has the tall kid with the hoodie come through?" she asked. The manager shook his head. "Still checked in, probably sleeping." She climbed the stairs again, frustration simmering. "He better not be dead," she whispered, jiggling the knob. To her surprise, the door opened with a creak. Not locked, just barely shut. Typical. She stepped in and found him sprawled diagonally. Crossed the bed like a crime scene sketch. Same jeans, same hoodie. His sneakers were still on, and a half-unzipped travel pouch dangled off the side of the bed. Camila sighed, walked over, and shook his shoulder. "Noah, it's almost 10. We missed 3 things already," he groaned. "5 more minutes, Mom." She rolled her eyes, grabbed his belt loop, and gave it a harmless tug. "Up, now." He groaned again, but finally opened one eye. "You're scary when you're responsible. And you're dangerous when you're left unsupervised," she said. "I'll be downstairs, coffee, strong, no sugar." By the time she reached the cafe, she was half laughing, half grumbling to herself. She ordered 2 coffees and sat outside, scrolling through pictures from the night before. One candid of them dancing made her pause. She looked genuinely happy. No filters, no defense. Noah appeared 10 minutes later, hair messily pushed back, hoodie replaced by a wrinkled tee. "Did I miss the morning monologue?" "You missed half the city, but sure," she said, sliding his cup over. He took a sip. God bless bitter coffee. They walked through cobblestone alleys lined with vines and pastel shutters. Street musicians played soft jazz. Vendors sold fresh bread and postcards. Camila explained the next stops casually, as if she wasn't still annoyed. Noah just followed, nodding like a kid in class. At a fountain plaza, she handed her phone to a tourist and gestured for a photo. "Smile, runaway prince. Only if you promise not to use it in court later," he teased. She rolled her eyes, but her smile cracked through. They posed awkwardly, then naturally, then laughing. They visited a tiny bookstore tucked between gelato stands where Camila found a novel in Italian and pretended she could translate. It says, "Beware of beautiful boys on planes." Noah tilted his head. "Are you sure you're not making that up?" "I'm a lawyer. I lie beautifully." They shared a pastry on a bench, taking turns holding it like a peace treaty. Crumbs on her chin, powdered sugar on his nose. "I think this is the first time I've done anything without Googling it first," she admitted. He smiled. "You should try more unplanned things, like running from your family's fortune," she said, raising an eyebrow. "Exactly," he grinned. "You'd be great at it." She laughed, but part of her knew. She envied his freedom. Even if chaotic, even if immature, he was living. She was always preparing. As they crossed a small bridge, he took a quick selfie. "For the journal," he said. "Your fans will love it," she replied. "I'm the mysterious older woman." "You're 23, he said. "That's basically prehistoric." She elbowed him but smiled. They bought cheap rings from a street vendor, claiming they were now bound by a European Treaty of Chaos and Caffeine. Noah insisted she wear hers on her pinky. "To show status," he explained. "What status?" "Supreme coffee dictator," he said, bowing dramatically. By early afternoon, the tension from the morning had melted like gelato on cobblestones. She had forgotten the time, the schedule, the career pressure. All that remained was the sunlight on her skin and the boy beside her who had no idea what tomorrow looked like. As they walked back to the hostel, she paused and looked at him. "Do you ever regret leaving?" He glanced at her. "I regret not leaving sooner." She nodded, quiet. "Maybe I should have planned less." "Then you wouldn't be here," he said. "And I wouldn't have someone to chase croissants with." Back in the lobby, they both stood there awkwardly, unsure if they were supposed to part ways or continue the day together. Noah looked at her with a smirk. "So, nap or next adventure?" Camila exhaled slowly. "Nap. Then maybe I'll consider letting you ruin more plans." Later that night, Camila sat on the windowsill of the hostel lounge, sipping chamomile tea while watching the flickering lights of the city. Noah walked in quietly, holding 2 cups of hot chocolate. "You look like someone trying to solve a life crisis," he said. "You're not wrong," she replied, tapping the glass. He sat on the floor below her, head tilted back against the wall, looking up at her like she was some riddle he was trying to figure out. "Ever wonder if you picked the wrong life path?" she asked. He shrugged. "Every single day, that's why I'm here, pretending I have no path at all." Camila rested her forehead on the glass. "I always thought my life would feel different. But now, but more magical." He looked up at her. "Isn't this kind of magical?" She laughed softly, then shook her head. "No, this is an accidental fever dream with croissants." Noah leaned back and stared at the ceiling. "I think life should feel like a playlist. Some songs are planned, some surprise you. You don't need to love every track to love the album." Camila glanced at him, touched by the unexpected depth. That was strangely poetic for a guy with no shampoo. The next morning, Camila surprised herself by canceling her original plan to visit museums alone. Instead, she bought 2 train tickets to a nearby romantic town she'd seen in a YouTube video. When she handed Noah the ticket, he blinked. "Wait, are we eloping?" "Don't flatter yourself," she smirked. They boarded the train with a paper bag full of pastries, a bottle of orange juice, and a shared playlist. Noah leaned his head against the window watching vineyards blur by, while Camila pretended not to steal glances. "You always travel this impulsively?" he asked. "No," she whispered. "Never." On the train, they played a game of life confessions. Each had to share one weird truth. Camila admitted she once pretended to be fluent in French to impress a guy. Noah admitted he couldn't swim. "You're rich and can't swim?" "That's how rich I am. Someone swims for me." They arrived in the small Italian town just before sunset. Stone buildings hugged narrow streets, and flower boxes burst with color under wooden windows. The air smelled like olive oil and jasmine. "This place doesn't feel real," Camila said, spinning slowly in the square. "Neither do you," he muttered. They found a quiet spot on the edge of a cliffside terrace, overlooking rooftops fading into the ocean. The sky had turned lavender, and the sea below caught every color like glass. They sat side by side, not speaking, letting silence be its own language. It wasn't awkward, it was rare. As the wind tugged lightly at her hair, Noah looked over. "You know, I'm glad you sat next to me on that flight." Camila smiled, eyes still on the horizon. "You weren't exactly friendly." "I was terrified," he admitted, "and jet-lagged and hiding from a butler with GPS." She laughed, then looked at him. Their faces were just inches apart. He wasn't trying to charm her. He wasn't being sarcastic. He was just there, Real. Present. Can I ask you something? He said softly. What? Would it ruin things if I kissed you right now? Her breath caught. She blinked twice, unsure if she was dreaming or about to jump off some emotional ledge. I don't know, she whispered. He nodded once, not moving closer. Then I won't. The tension hung between them like a thread caught on the edge of something delicate. They walked back through the cobbled streets, both quiet but smiling softly. It wasn't rejection. It wasn't regret. It was patience. A dance neither wanted to rush. You didn't kiss me, she teased. You told me not to, he replied. So you listen now. Only to smart girls on dream vacations. Back at the hostel, they ended the day sharing a gelato under the stars. Noah let her pick the flavor. Hazelnut? Bold move. You should try trusting people with good taste more often. He smiled, licked the spoon, and made a face. Okay, fair. This is magic. Camila sat on the edge of her bed that night, staring at her suitcase. Half of her wanted to keep following her itinerary. The other half was considering tearing it up and letting Noah plan the next stop. But what was this even? A travel flirtation? A summer memory? Something more? She checked her phone and saw a new message from Noah. Just wanted to say thank you for letting me sit beside you, metaphorically and literally. She smiled, typing back. You're welcome. But metaphorically, you still take up way too much leg room, he replied instantly. Noted. I'll work on shrinking my metaphors. She laughed, biting her lip. She didn't know where this was going, but it felt like a page she didn't want to close. Like something unexpected unfolding in real time. And for the first time in forever, she was okay not knowing. They agreed to catch a morning train to the coast. No plans, no maps, just let's see what happens. Camila still packed with precision, but for once she didn't double-check the zippers. Maybe magic wasn't about being swept off your feet. Maybe it was about walking beside someone willingly. The morning sun wrapped the coast in a soft golden haze as they wandered barefoot along the beach. Camila held her sandals in one hand, the salty breeze playing with her hair. Noah skipped a stone across the calm surface of the sea, then glanced at her. You ever feel like time moves differently on vacation? She smiled, watching the small waves roll in, wetting the hem of her dress. Yeah. Like none of this will count once we land back in reality. He walked beside her, their steps sinking without effort. Then maybe we should stop walking toward reality. Just walk. Later they found a quiet stretch of sand near a small fishing boat, flipped upside down. Noah flopped onto a towel with a groan. Remind me to never trust Google Maps' definition of short scenic route. Camila sat beside him, brushing sand from her legs. But it was scenic. He pulled out a small leather-bound notebook from his backpack, flipping to a half-filled page. What's that? She asked, leaning closer. Nothing, he said quickly, but then softened. Just thoughts. A travel log. A way to remember the weird and wonderful. She smiled. So, I made the weird list? Definitely the wonderful. As she watched him scribble something, her smile slowly faded. She had never really dated anyone long-term, not because she didn't want to, but because no one ever made her pause. Noah had made her pause. He'd made her want to slow down, even if she knew this was temporary. Noah looked up and caught her watching him. What's going on in that brilliant legal brain? She looked away. I don't know, that's the problem. For once, I can't organize my thoughts into neat bullet points. He nodded, understanding more than she said. They walked through the narrow streets of the coastal town, trying to get lost on purpose. He stopped her in front of a tiny gelato stand and pointed to a flavor called Fiori di Latte. Try it. It's like vanilla, but not boring. She took a bite, then raised an eyebrow. Still boring. He laughed, brushing a speck of gelato off her nose. You're hard to impress. I'm an attorney, she replied. Impressing me requires court evidence. He placed his hand over his heart dramatically. Your Honor, I present exhibit. The sunset we're about to see. As the sky turned amber, they sat on a wooden bench overlooking the bay. A guitar player strummed somewhere nearby, blending perfectly with the breeze. Camila leaned her head on his shoulder without thinking. He didn't move, just adjusted so she'd be more comfortable. In that silence, she felt it. The ache of knowing something real was blooming, but also the fear of what came after. What was she supposed to do? Stay? Ask him to? None of those options made sense. It was a vacation, and he was 19. Later that night, Noah curled up on the couch in their Airbnb while she took a long shower. When she came out, he was scribbling again in the notebook, totally absorbed. You're seriously dedicated to that diary, she said, towel drying her hair. It's not a diary, he mumbled. It's a time capsule. She sat beside him and peeked. Did you write about the gelato war? Of course, and your criminal misuse of anchovies on pizza. She laughed, then grew quiet. You're gonna forget me someday, aren't you? He closed the notebook gently. Not a chance. I'm writing you down so I can remember you when I'm old and boring. Her heart thudded. He said it so effortlessly, as if keeping memories of her was a given. You're not boring, she whispered. You're dangerous. To your itinerary? He teased. To my peace of mind, she corrected, staring at the floor. He didn't push her. He just leaned back, looking up at the wooden beams of the ceiling. It's weird, right? How someone can just crash into your world out of nowhere and change the shape of it? Camila nodded, swallowing hard. Yeah. And then disappear like it never happened. She rolled over in bed that night and saw his notebook resting on the table. A corner of a page peeked out with her name on it. She didn't open it. Instead, she stared at the ceiling and wondered how many pages of his life she'd get to be in. The next day, as they packed up to leave for their next city, she paused mid-fold. You know I'm leaving in 3 days, right? He looked up from zipping his bag. I know. And you're not asking me to stay? He gave her a sad smile. I wouldn't do that to you, or to this. They boarded a quiet local train headed north. She sat by the window this time, and he rested his head back, eyes closed. So where do we go next? He asked. To a town with a name I can't pronounce, she replied. Perfect, he said. My favorite kind of place. As they walked along another unfamiliar street, she noticed how he stayed just half a step behind her. Never rushing, never pushing. He asked questions, told stories, made her laugh until she snorted water. But a knot was forming in her chest. The closer they got, the less time they had. That evening they climbed a long hill that led to a view of an ancient church bathed in golden light. The city stretched behind them, rooftops layered like poetry. Noah turned to her slowly. Camila, he said, voice soft. She looked up, heart thudding. Yeah? He leaned in, stopping just before their lips met. If I kiss you right now, you'll start packing this moment into a goodbye, won't you? She blinked, stunned by how well he read her. Maybe. He smiled gently. Then let's just stand here, until the world forgets about time. Then he leaned forward, closing the space she was so afraid to cross, and kissed her. His lips were soft, uncertain. and everything she'd secretly wanted since the moment he slid into her Uber. He wasn't mature enough, and she was too mature to pretend it would last. But for now, just for now, she let the future go and kissed him back. Back at the Airbnb, he played the playlist they'd been building since that first walk through the city. With each track, their laughter quieted, their steps slowed, and their clothes disappeared like lyrics fading out. He pulled her close, cheek against her neck, and they danced through the beginning of something neither of them dared name. That night, to the rhythm of their own reckless hearts, she gave in with all the fire of a teenage dream. The next morning, the sun filtered in through thin curtains as he blinked awake, rubbing his eyes with the back of his hand. "If I jump on your plane the way I hijacked your Uber, think they'll let me stay?" he asked, voice still rough. She laughed, pulling on her sweater. "I doubt the pilot will circle the sky for you. Then I'll keep circling the earth with you," he said, dead serious. She kissed him again, slow this time, like the answer to a question neither had spoken. And as she pulled away, she knew she was losing her mind. But what a beautiful kind of madness this was. Her heart, so used to logic, was suddenly fluent in chaos. And maybe, just maybe, that was exactly what she'd come looking for. She didn't know what Spain would bring. She didn't know how it would feel to let go. But what she did know was that these days, these impossibly unpredictable, heart-splitting, laughter-filled days, were exactly the kind of escape she had dreamed of. This wasn't a fantasy anymore. It was hers, and it was real. The plane touched, down on the sun-drenched runway of Girona Costa Brava, and the salty breeze already felt like a promise. Camila rolled her suitcase past the terminal, her sundress fluttering, eyes squinting behind oversized sunglasses. Noah walked beside her, shirt open over a white tee, effortlessly handsome. "So this is Spain?" he said. "I think I could fall in love." Their Airbnb was a stone cottage near the cliffs, with ivy crawling over sun-bleached walls and a hammock on the porch. As they unpacked, Camila tossed him sunscreen and said, "You'll burn in 10 minutes. He grinned. "I thought you'd protect me," she laughed. "I'm not SPF 50, Noah." That first afternoon they walked down to a hidden cove, where turquoise water lapped over golden sand. She slipped off her sandals and ran toward the waves like a child. He followed, splashing behind her, both of them laughing like they had no past or future. It was freedom wrapped in sunscreen and salt. Camila wore a red bikini with a scarf tied in her hair, and Noah couldn't stop looking at her like she was made of light. She caught him staring and said, "Careful, your jaw's dropping." He shrugged, unabashed. "I think I'm getting sunburned from just looking at you." "That's not how UV works," she teased. They played a long game of who can hold their breath the longest underwater. Camila always won, claiming law school taught me patience. They floated together after, skin warm, heads close. "This feels like a secret honeymoon," he whispered. "One we didn't know we booked." She smiled but said nothing. Sunset, they sipped sangria by the cliffside. She snapped pictures of the view and he took pictures of her. "We'll pretend it's for your blog," he said, even though she didn't have one. "Or for my memory," he added, softer this time. She lowered her camera. "You're such a problem," she murmured. Later that night they found a small, local dance bar lit with fairy lights and voices. The music was fast, the drinks cold, and their laughter louder than both. He spun her into twirls like they'd done it forever. When she tripped on her own heel, he caught her like a movie scene. "You're hopeless," she gasped. They walked home barefoot through the village streets, his shirt tied around her shoulders. She held gelato in one hand and his fingers in the other. "What if we just kept going?" he asked. "Country after country." She looked up at the stars. Until reality catches us, I suppose. The next morning they made pancakes in the cottage's tiny kitchen, flour on her nose and egg on his shirt. "You cook like someone who's never cracked an egg," she teased. "I'm usually the one being served," he admitted. "Oh, how the tables have not turned at all," she said, flipping the pan. They spent the day exploring coves, finding local food trucks, and reading on the beach. She lay on his chest while he read aloud from a travel magazine. His voice vibrated against her ear, slow and warm. "Are we doing this right?" he asked. "Doing what?" "Living like it means something." Camila looked over at him, lips slightly parted. "I think so," she said, not sure if she was lying or not. That evening they cooked, pasta together, candles flickering on the patio. "I've never had a fake honeymoon this real," she said. "Are we going to get a fake divorce too?" He frowned playfully. "No divorces, we're that rare couple that beats the odds." She laughed, pouring more wine. "What odds?" "Two strangers on a plane, one runaway heir, one overworked. Lawyer, classic fairy tale." "Sounds more like a Netflix pitch," she said. "I'd binge it," he replied. That night in bed, their limbs tangled under linen sheets, a fan spinning slowly above. She laid on his chest, fingers tracing the outline of his collarbone. "When do you go back?" he asked. She went silent. "Let's just talk about tomorrow," she whispered. "Just tomorrow." They woke with the sun and no plans, only swimsuits and scooter helmets. She drove them to a market where they bought fruit and postcards. He picked one up that said, "Some memories are meant to burn forever." He held it up. "This is us," he said. She blinked quickly and turned away. They danced again that night, slower this time, barefoot on their patio to a playlist he'd made. "You're very into romantic playlists," she said. "What can I say?" he replied. "Your voice deserves a soundtrack." "That's dangerously smooth," she warned. "I'm 19. I'm supposed to be dangerous." Laughter turned into kisses, turned into quiet breathing, turned into dawn. On their final full day in Spain, they hiked a trail above the cliffs, watching waves crash below. "This feels big," he said, "like something I'll remember forever." She nodded. "Let's not ruin it with expectations." Back at the cottage, they packed in silence. He carefully folded her scarf like it was sacred. "Where to next?" he asked. "France," she said quietly. He leaned against the wall. "Can I follow you there too?" "You've followed me through 2 countries already," she smiled. "Might as well finish the trilogy." That night he lit candles without asking. She poured the wine without speaking. They sat in silence for a while before she said, "I'm scared of what happens when it ends." "Then let's make it so good that it echoes," he said, louder than any goodbye. She looked at him. "You really don't seem 19. "That's just the trauma talking," he joked, and she laughed despite herself. He stood and reached for her hand. "We've got one more dance left in Spain. Come on." She took his hand, and they danced in the fading light, barefoot and brave. She journaled in bed that night while he snored softly beside her. "I swore I'd never fall for someone out of reach," she wrote. "But what if this isn't falling? What if it's floating?" Then she closed the notebook and turned to him, knowing they only had hours left in paradise. The next morning they boarded a train to France, her hand in his, luggage lighter than it should have been. "This doesn't feel like the end," he said. "It's not," she said, "just the middle." He smiled. "Best middle I've ever had." And as the train rolled forward, so did something neither of them dared name. Paris greeted them, with rain so soft it felt like a blessing. Camilla stood under her umbrella in front of the Eiffel Tower, raindrops painting her shoulders. Noah stepped beside her, shaking his curls like a dog. "Told you Paris would be dramatic," he whispered. And she laughed like she was falling. They shared a crepe in Montmartre, powdered sugar dusting both their fingers. "You know," she said, "there was a time I thought romance like this only existed in books." He leaned closer. "You think we're fiction?" She looked at him. "No, I think we're proof that fiction is jealous of us." They visited Shakespeare and Company, their fingers brushing over antique bindings. Noah bought her a small poetry book and scribbled in the front, "For the girl who taught me how to breathe in chaos." She blushed when she read it. He said, "Don't act surprised, you inspire whole genres." One afternoon they danced alone in a quiet alley in Le Marais while a street violinist played. Tourists passed, smiling, assuming they were actors, or newlyweds. Camila didn't correct them. For the first time in a long time, pretending didn't feel like lying. It felt like hope wrapped in rhythm. In the Loire Valley, they stayed in a tiny inn surrounded by vineyards. She walked barefoot on the cold stone floors, while he read wine labels aloud in a terrible accent. "You're the worst French speaker alive," she giggled. "I didn't come here to speak," he said, pulling her into a slow kiss. That night, lying under the stars, he asked, "What happens when we get home?" She swallowed. "Can we not talk about home?" He nodded. "So we make a pact? A pact to not ruin this by being realistic?" "Exactly," he said. "Deal," she whispered, sealing it with her lips. They drank champagne by the river, tossing questions at each other like cards. "Favorite moment so far?" "You falling asleep on my shoulder on the plane." "That's boring," she smiled. "That was the start," he replied. "And the start always matters more than people think." In the morning they wrote postcards they'd never send. His said, "To the version of me that stayed." Hers read, "To the version of me that didn't overthink." They pinned them to the wall of their inn, beside dozens of others. Anonymous love letters to possible lives. One evening in Lyon, they climbed a hill just to watch the city turn gold. She stood at the edge of a stone wall, arms out like wings, wind lifting her scarf. "I'm not flying away," she said without looking back. "I'm just learning how to land softer." He wrapped his arms around her. "Wherever you land, I'll miss it." Their laughter echoed through museums and bistros, metro stations and morning bakeries. Strangers often mistook them for locals. "We blend in," Noah joked, "because no one here knows we're on borrowed time," Camila added, eyes heavy with something she didn't want to name. At dinner one night, she wore a black dress that made him stare for far too long. "What?" she asked, shy. "You make goodbye look like the wrong decision," he said. She looked down at her wine. "You make staying feel like falling behind." "Then let's not go anywhere," he whispered. He made her laugh during serious art exhibits and sang off-key while walking along the Seine. She teased him constantly and sent him pictures of French dogs in little sweaters. They lived like there was nothing after August. And for a while, that felt true. They found a tiny bookshop cafe in Nice where she ordered hot chocolate and he asked the barista how to say "don't leave" in French. "Ne pars pas," the woman replied. "Sounds sad," he said. "Because it always is," Camila murmured, holding her cup a little tighter. In the warm evenings, they strolled hand in hand along flower-lined streets, making up stories about the people they passed. "She's definitely a spy," he whispered, pointing. "And he's in love with his barista," she replied. They lived entire lives in between shared glances. On their last night in France, they visited a candlelit garden restaurant. "This is too perfect," Camila said. "Almost suspicious." "Maybe we're the twist," he smiled. The plot twist no one saw coming. "Do we get a happy ending?" she asked. "I think. We already are it." They kissed under a lantern-lit archway, her hand cradling the back of his neck, his breath uneven. No music played, but the silence was loud with meaning. "Don't ruin it," she whispered against his lips. "I wasn't planning on speaking again," he said, and kissed her once more. At their hotel that night, she left her suitcase half-zipped on purpose. "Subtle protest?" he teased. "Hope," she said. "That maybe something spills and makes me stay." "Then maybe I should hide your passport," he offered. "Don't tempt me," she replied, not joking at all. When they boarded the ferry toward Greece, she rested her head on his chest, watching the sea reflect the sky. "Do you ever wish you weren't born into all that?" she asked. He paused. "Sometimes I wish I'd been born next to you on a normal Tuesday." She didn't respond. She didn't have to. Their hands stayed intertwined even as the wind turned colder. It felt like they were sailing into their last chapter together, and they both knew it. But neither of them dared to say it aloud. Not yet. Because silence was the only thing keeping it whole. They arrived in Santorini under the pink hues of dusk, cliffs glowing like poetry. Camila stepped off the boat and whispered, "So this is where love stories go to breathe." Noah smiled, brushing a strand of her hair back. "No, this is where love stories go to remember." The Greek islands looked like dreams carved in sunlight and stone. Camilla and Noah wandered through whitewashed streets of Oya, stealing kisses under blue domes, the ocean below catching secrets they didn't speak aloud. They took silly photos, laughed until they cried, and danced barefoot on rooftops after sunset. Every moment felt like a soft rebellion against reality. On the beaches of Mykonos, she wore a flowing sundress that tangled in the wind. Noah built sand castles beside her like a child, then buried her feet just to make her squeal. At night they swam under stars, salt water cooling the heat between them. She whispered, "This feels like our honeymoon." He replied, "Maybe it is, just out of order." They rode scooters across winding roads, hair flying, hearts too loud to ignore. He sang off-key to their shared playlist while she threatened to jump off if he didn't shut up. In tiny cafes, they tried new flavors, feeding each other olives and honey-drenched pastries. Greece wasn't just beautiful, it was wild, romantic, and completely theirs. On their last night in Santorini, Noah led her to a small, stone-walled room filled with candles. Music hummed low from the playlist they'd built together over weeks. He held a folded piece of paper in his hand, shaky, like his heart had something too heavy to hold quietly. "I wrote something," he said. "Just listen." He read slowly, eyes never leaving hers. "You are the storm that softened me, the clock I forgot to check. You're the page I dog-eared just to remember where I smiled the most. My last night here with you, same old playlist in this white stone room. My last night here with you? Maybe yes. Maybe no." She blinked fast, lips trembling into a smile. "Noah," she whispered but couldn't finish. He tucked the paper into her suitcase when she wasn't looking, like a secret prayer folded between clothes. They danced slow, arms wrapped around each other. No rush to sleep, no fear of dawn. That night, the stars outside seemed to pause, watching them. When morning came, she sat silently by the window, watching the ferry schedules scroll across her phone. He made her coffee exactly the way she liked. Strong, no sugar, a little bitter like the moment. "I should have met you earlier," he said quietly. "We could have had more time to get this right." She didn't answer. She couldn't. The car ride to the airport felt too short, or maybe just too real. Neither of them spoke until the final turn, when the signs started listing gates and terminals. "Camila," he said, reaching for her hand. She looked down, then met his eyes. "Don't make this harder." "I'm not," he replied. "Just slower." At the drop-off point, she stepped out first, fixing her hair with shaky fingers. Noah joined her, pulling her suitcase from the trunk with the same gentleness he used to hold her waist. "You know I could come back with you," he said, voice barely above the breeze. "But I'd ruin you. The media, my family. You deserve a clean future." "You don't get to decide that," she said, swallowing. "I get to choose what I can handle." He took a breath. "And I'm choosing to protect you. I'd burn down everything for you. That's why I can't follow you home." Her eyes filled. "So you burn us instead?" He looked away, only because it was real. Their last kiss wasn't rushed. It wasn't fiery or desperate. It was slow and quiet, a closing chapter kissed into existence. His fingers brushed her jaw like he was trying to remember every angle. Her breath catching like the sea was rising behind them. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For making this the best goodbye." She turned and walked through the sliding doors, not daring to look back. He stood there long after she disappeared into security, hands in his pockets, head tilted toward the sky. In his chest, it felt like something had broken loose and taken flight, but he didn't try to hold it back. He just let it hurt. She cried on the plane, not like in the movies, but soft, controlled, dabs of tissue and long exhales. The seat beside her felt colder than it should have. Her phone buzzed. One last message. "Don't forget your poem, even if you forget me." She didn't answer. She just clutched her bag a little tighter. Back in New York, her apartment felt too still. The city buzzed outside, pretending it could distract her. At night, she played their playlist, skipping the last few songs. She buried his contact deep in her favorites, just in case. For a while, they still commented on each other's stories. A heart here, a wink there. Months turned into a year. Life flooded back in. She got promoted. He appeared in magazines again, clean-shaven, dating someone famous, building a company. Eventually, they stopped talking. Not out of anger. Just space. As if life had gently, cruelly reminded them, even soulmates don't always stay. She saw him once on a billboard and smiled. He was wearing the same sweatshirt from the flight. In that moment, she remembered the crepe in Montmartre, the poem in Santorini, the sun on their skin in Greece. She whispered, "Maybe yes, maybe no," and kept walking. Her life unfolded like a staircase she built herself, brick by relentless brick. Camila rose through the ranks, mastered contracts like chessboards, and turned heads in conference rooms. She earned respect, silence, and the kind of solitude that power brings. But no boardroom ever gave her butterflies like one boy on a plane once did. She dated. She tried. There were a few dinners that turned into weekends, and even one proposal. She didn't answer. But no one ever asked her the kinds of questions that made her feel seen. No one ever matched that ridiculous playlist of old-school pop and chaotic trap they built between train stations. One evening, curled under her office, blanket with wine and insomnia, she typed his name into Instagram. A recent post. Him alone on a coastal terrace, notebook open, hair tousled, captioned only with a date. It had been over a year since their last like. Her heart thudded. She zoomed in, knowing exactly what that notebook was. She climbed a stool. In her apartment, digging through a box marked Greece, filled with sunscreen and printed photos she never hung. At the bottom, under her favorite sundress, it was still there. His leather journal. Untouched. She had promised herself never to read it, but she opened it, and the pages smelled like ocean and heartbreak. This seat doesn't recline. Who in their right mind builds chairs like this? If my father ever flew an economy, he'd pass a law against it. She smiled, already crying. The girl next to me has these calm, tired eyes, and I can't stop watching her lips move while she listens to something in her headphones. I think she's dangerous. I remembered something Dad told me once. Ask better questions. People like people who ask. So I asked her everything. Law, love, flights, bagels. She answered like she didn't mind. Camila clutched the page. She could feel him beside her again. That airplane, that spark that never burned out, just faded. Then came the page she was never meant to read. I traded hoodies in the airport gift shop, bought a dumb leather bag just to feel less like me. Followed her to that Uber like an idiot in love. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'd rather be stupid beside her than smart and alone at home. Her sob escaped her lips. He had documented their entire trip from his perspective. Her quirks, the hostile door that got stuck, the way she snorted when she laughed in Spain. The poem he'd read in Greece had 20 unreleased stanzas. He wrote down every song they added, every coffee she ordered, and even the exact shade of her nail polish. I bought a ring in Paris, she gasped. Not for a proposal, just to prove to myself I could choose someone for real. But I never gave it. I thought it was too camp rock. That made her laugh through her tears. It was exactly something he would say. She kept reading, even when her vision blurred. I wanted to ask if she'd wait for me. Just 2 years, but that's selfish. She's fire and steel in spreadsheets. I'm still learning how to boil water. Camila's fingers trembled. So I called my sister. I told her everything, and she said, time. Noah, let her fly. If it's real, time won't kill it. It'll sharpen it. The final pages were a slow unraveling. Greece feels like a goodbye I'm writing too slowly. I memorized her breath, her laugh, the weight of her hair when she sleeps on my chest. I wanted her to know, but I didn't want to ruin her. So I left. And then one last line. When the silence becomes mutual, I'll be ready. Camila closed the journal and pressed it against her chest. She had cried like this once, the night she boarded that flight back to reality. But this time the tears were older, more forgiving. Her love for him had never ended. It had only been stored between pages, playlists, and unsent messages. The year that followed was filled with change. She made peace with the silence. The softened. She still saw him in odd places, a scent, a line from a podcast, a hoodie in a shop window. But she stopped checking his stories. They both did. The space grew, like time was doing what it had promised. Until one night, New York had always been too big, too fast, too loud to believe in fate. Camila had feared silently that she'd one day spot him across a sidewalk, or hear his voice behind her in a crowd. But she never did, until tonight, when time seemed to pause like the first breath before a storm. The gala lights shimmered across marble floors, glasses clinked, and ambition whispered in every tuxedoed corner. She stood tall, sharp in a navy gown that hugged her like confidence. Her firm handshake had just closed a deal worth millions. She turned, and there he was. Noah. He wasn't a boy anymore. His jawline was sharper, hair styled back, a tailored midnight suit fitting like it was grown onto him. No hoodie, no chaos. But the smile, God, that smile, still curved like it held a secret only she once knew. Then his eyes found hers, and he froze too. For a split second, the gala fell away. Just noise behind glass. He muttered something to a cluster of executives, excused himself with an effortless nod, and stepped toward her. With each step, her Pulse tapped faster. Her fingers trembled around her champagne glass. But she stood her ground. He stopped just close enough for her to smell a hint of cedar and citrus. His voice was smoother, deeper, more deliberate now. "Camila Ortega," he said, like tasting the name. "You look like power." She tilted her head. "And you finally look like you paid for your own haircut." He grinned wide, teeth too. Perfect for someone raised on rebellion. "You're really gonna pretend you weren't waiting for me to say something cheesy?" She lifted an eyebrow. "Oh, I knew you would. I just didn't know it'd come in Armani." Their banter hadn't aged. It had sharpened. They didn't hug, didn't touch, but everything about their presence screamed intimacy, like two wires humming with current but never crossing. He motioned toward the balcony. "You still hate rooms full of men talking about money?" She smirked. "I prefer rooftops and liars in tuxedos." Outside, the city stretched beneath them like an infinite maze of everything unsaid. Wind kissed her collarbone. He leaned on the railing, one hand tucked in his pocket, the other holding a whiskey. She watched the skyline, but felt his eyes, only on her. "You seeing anyone?" he asked gently. She shrugged. "Not really. My vacations don't usually include someone who ruins me for everyone else." He let out a breathy laugh. "You really should fly economy more often. Some people find magic there." She smiled through tight lips. "You speak like someone who's been down that aisle more than once." He shook his head, proud. "Just once. And never again. I still haven't topped the thrill of bad coffee and falling for a girl who could outwit a CEO." Her hand tightened around the railing. Her heart wanted to fall, but her mind clung to high ground. "And you?" she asked without turning. "Ever get around to building your little empire, find someone to inherit the drama?" His silence was soft, almost guilty. "I tried," he said eventually. "A few times. But apparently, I suck at building anything that doesn't start with you." She exhaled, the air suddenly too sharp. He looked at her with that same tilted head smirk from Greece. "If it weren't for that trip, I'd probably have 2 kids by now." Her eyes widened. "Excuse me?" He nodded solemnly. "Yeah, that was the plan. My family had a whole chart. Marriage at 21. Babies by 23. A castle by 30. She turned to face him fully, her voice low. "And you ruined all that by falling asleep on my shoulder?" He shrugged. Some shoulders change destinies. She hated how fast her lips curved at that. He took a slow sip of his drink, then added, "Truth is, I still dream about that playlist. And your snore." She narrowed her eyes. "I don't snore." "Right. Must have been my heartbeat." She laughed finally. Quiet but real. It echoed across the rooftop like something sacred. "You're still impossible," she said. "And you're still the only thing I didn't plan for," he replied, eyes searching hers like a map he'd misplaced long ago. They stood in silence, wrapped in city light and memory. Below them, cabs and people in the future kept rushing forward. But up here, it was just a moment, a thread reconnecting after years of fray. She wasn't sure what would happen next, only that she didn't want it to end yet. Noah pulled his phone out of his pocket with the same calm confidence he used when stepping into her Uber years ago. His fingers tapped the screen swiftly, calling a car like it was nothing. But Camilla's eyes caught the motion, and something tightened in her chest. "Running away again?" she asked, voice barely above the city wind. He didn't look up, just smiled that half smile that always preceded a surprise. "The Uber's not for me," he said, pocketing the phone slowly. "It's for you." Her eyes narrowed with that same skeptical charm. "And what, you're gonna hijack it again?" He stepped one pace closer, just enough to feel the warmth between them. Only if you let me. There was a pause, a long, pulsing pause like a breath held mid-air. Can I come with you again, Camila? Wherever this ride takes you next? She stared at him, that annoying glint in his eyes and that irritatingly sincere smirk playing with her logic. You expect me to believe this isn't some elaborate scam, she teased. That you're not some spoiled heir pulling another reckless stunt for thrills? Noah didn't flinch. Instead, he unlocked his phone again and pulled up the YouTube Premium app. He tapped into his playlists, scrolled for a moment, then handed the phone to her. Her name was still there. The same playlist, untouched, unedited, still named C+N Airplane Hearts. He looked at her and shrugged softly. You're the only story I ever wanted to finish. Camila scrolled through the songs. There were the same tracks. Every song they added together during that messy, magical summer. She smiled as she reached the last song, the last one they'd danced to. And you didn't add anything else? She asked, glancing up. Not even after all this time? He shook his head. Nothing felt right. Not without you there to hit play. Her smile faded into something softer, less amused, more moved. For the first time in years, she felt that ache in her chest ease, like she had been waiting for this moment without knowing. You know, she said, closing the phone. Gently, that playlist had a lot of long pauses, like we couldn't decide the next track. He nodded. Maybe we needed space between the verses. She laughed, this time with the sound of someone finally choosing to believe. So what's next? He held out his hand, not forcing it, just offering it. Whatever song you want to hear next, I'll follow. The Uber arrived. Its lights glowed like something out of a dream. He walked with her toward it, silent but sure. She looked back at the city skyline, then at him, the boy who once fell asleep on her shoulder and somehow made the world smaller. She slid into the back seat first, and just like before, he waited a beat, then followed. Are you sure about this? She whispered. This might be another very long ride. He grinned. Then I hope you pack snacks this time, she rolled her eyes. Still impossible. Still yours, he said, leaning back as the car pulled away from the gala, from the years between them, from all the quiet waiting that had finally ended. As the city blurred behind them, she opened the playlist on his phone again, pressed play. A familiar intro played, something acoustic and hopeful. He looked over. This one's still your favorite? She nodded. It's the one that feels like us. The car moved through Manhattan like a memory rewinding itself. Her hand rested over his. No rush. No destination that mattered more than this quiet moment between one verse and the next. He turned toward her. So, now that we've got a playlist, she smiled, eyes half closed. We just have to keep adding to it. Outside, the world spun with lights and chaos, but inside the car, it was just two people, a second chance, and the echo of songs that had waited too long. Love isn't always loud. Sometimes it hides in playlists and postcards, in cities left behind and names not spoken for years. But when it finds its way back, you always know. Because no one forgets the story that almost rewrote everything. And theirs? It never really ended. It just paused until both hearts were ready again. Maybe they'd add songs slowly now. One trip, one dinner, one dance at a time. But the playlist was open, and that was enough for now.